White Boy Rick, which is the new film by Jan de Manche, who made 71. You remember 71 that I talked about, which was this, I think was this really, really sort of intense film about the Troubles. It starred Jack O'Connell. And one of the things...
I do remember you talking about that.
Yeah, and I really liked it. And one of the things I liked most about it was just how well it evoked its sense of time and place. So this is based on the true story of Richard Wershe Jr., who became apparently the youngest ever FBI informant at the age of 14 in the early 80s. So Richie Merritt stars as Rick Jr., and Matthew McConaughey is his dad.
Was Elvis?
Well, that's what Matthew McConaughey sort of sounds like. He's doing an Elvis impression, doesn't it? All right.
No.
All right.
Your voices are very good, Mark.
Thank you.
I don't want you to take the wrong way.
But you talked to Matthew McConaughey about that when you interviewed him about the reconnaissance. It's a thing that he does. All right.
Okay, getting warmer. No, getting colder again.
Okay, fine. So we first meet them in the early 80s at a gun show. And Richard the older buys weapons legally, which he then modifies and sells illegally. So he's running this kind of illegal business out of his basement. And his son follows him slavishly to the gun shows and is co-opted into selling these illegally modified weapons to local gangs. Meanwhile, Rick's sister, Dawn, played by Belle Powley, is an addict and she's desperate to leave the house. His grandparents, Richard's parents, played by Bruce Dern and Piper Laurie, live across the street, and the family are clearly a big presence in the street. They're people who live their life sort of, with... They're not against having a shouting match in the street.
Time to go!
Get back.
Get off of me!
Get back in the house, Don. Go in the house and get dressed.
No!
Get inside the house.
Dad!
Stop.
What?
No. Ah, Christ. Keep going. I got it under control. You don't need to stop the car, Pop. Everything's fine. Don't get out of the car.
Everything is not fine. A man just ran out of your house almost as my Imperial. You don't have a goddamn thing under control. You're not going to let her talk to you
I'm
like
going to the
that?
goddamn house. I got this under control, all right?
Ain't under control.
Ray, stay out of it. Looks like Richard's having a bad day.
No, Ma. I'm not having a bad day. My son and I walked into the lion's den this morning and walked out with the golden fleece. Ain't that right, Ricky?
That's right.
That's right.
You're pathetic! Both of you!
Hey, put some clothes on, will ya? We're going for custard.
See, I told you the custard was coming back. It's like the whole show is knitted together with such
custard.
skill that the custard was
Knitted with custard, that's us.
So now I didn't know this story beforehand, and some people might do. I hadn't heard any of it, so I benefited from watching the film unfold. I didn't know anything. I don't think I'd even sort of seen a trailer. And you heard from that clip, Bruce Dern being. I mean, I love Bruce Dern. It's a very fine ensemble cast. It's not a spoiler because it's kind of the setup of the movie to say that what happens is that FBI agents led by Jennifer Jason Leigh come circling around. They see this young boy going out, essentially running errands for his dad. They see him going house to house and they think, fine, because of what we know about his dad and because of what we know about him, we can use him. And they co-opt him basically into buying and selling drugs for them in order to secure busts. And that's the setup of the story. But the question is, what happens when they've done the bust? What happens when they've, he's essentially run his course with them? What happens to his life after that? And in the same way that 71 did a really good job of evoking that feel of those streets in the 1970s, this does an equally good job of evoking the milieu, the milieu of the 1980s. I mean, everything's sort of filmed in these washed out, desperate colours, except for a sequence where they go off to Vegas and suddenly everything kind of brightens up. It's as if somebody's turned all the contrast off on the television in a way that would surely annoy Tom Cruise. And the film does clearly have star names in it, but one of the things I liked best about it was that it is an ensemble film. It is a film in which Matthew McConaughey's character is actually effectively playing second banana to the character played by Richie Merritt, who is really the centre of attention. You have Jennifer Jason Leigh and Bruce Dern and Piper Laurie all playing as second players, ensemble players. So wherever you look, the film's got very, very fine actors, clearly, doing work that they believe in because they all seem completely natural. I mean, you do believe in the family, you do believe in the two houses, you do believe in the way it sprawls. And the other thing that's clever about it is that when you look at the subject matter, essentially, it's talking about people who are illegally buying and selling guns and drugs. And the consequences of that trade are on display. I mean, innocent people become addicted. Innocent people are shot. There's warfare breaking out in the streets, and they are part of that market. And yet, what the film does is, at the same time as recognizing that everything that's going on is abhorrent, it makes you think, oh, well, there is a sympathetic side to these characters. And you see that partly through the way in which the FBI and the police deal with them, and partly through the fact that through Richie Merritt's sort of performance, you see his character seeing the world around him and learning how the world around him works, and then becoming part of it, feeling that he needs to be a sort of, a cog in this machine. It's a very odd film. It's weirdly melancholic. It's got a very kind of downbeat feel to it for a film which, has, busts and shootouts and all that sort of stuff. It is a film with a very melancholy, downbeat, sort of poignant tone. And the times at which it works best, I think, are the interactions between the family, between these characters who are living a virtually breadline existence, but are, somehow managing to scrap together this existence in the only way they know how. And there's one scene in which the son says to the father, "We have to do something. Look at us. Look at how we live. Look at the situation we're in. He's just crashed his car. Look at what we're in. We have to do something, and we have to do something now." And it does that thing of sort of making you understand how the characters then go on to do what it is that they go on to do, which is, drugs and guns, which are, clearly reprehensible occupations. So I think it's not. I mean, I don't think it's for everybody. I think it's going to have a hard time finding an audience because it is an ensemble piece. It's not a star-led piece, and it is a very, very downbeat story. But I thought I could feel the coldness of the streets. I could feel the grit under its fingernails. And for all the time that I was watching the movie, I absolutely believed that I was watching these characters and watching the narrative unfold in this strange and twisted way. So I quite liked it. It's called White Boy Rick.